Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Flow Show. It is Wednesday, the 15th of October, and a lot of moves going on again today. So keeping some good volatility in markets for us to trade. Morning, Kate. How you doing?
Morning, Ryan. Yep, all good, mate. All good. Yeah, already the 15th of October, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Christmas
flies.
flying by, absolutely flying by. Right, let's get cracking. Kicking off in China. Just something to keep an eye on. They've nudged their fixing rate down to 7.09. I've taken it just under the 7.10 mark. Can't even find me. China, it's up there somewhere. There we go. So I think if I recall, this has been one of the first closes below 710 for quite some time. Might be nothing, might be something. We'll keep an eye on it, given everything that's going on with China and the US and everything else. If they decide they want to shift their currency around a bit, then we're going to start seeing that in things like the fixes. Levels wise, we're not doing an awful lot. CNY, not doing too much. We're still sticking around this 714, 710 area. Pretty much the same with CNH as well. We're not straying too far to the upside, but we're not getting much below this 712, 713 area. But as I say, something just to keep an eye on. Another thing to keep an eye on is their data. They are still in negative inflation. This time it came in minus 0.3, was expected to improve to minus 0.2, but it came in worse than expected. That was a bit better than last month. PPI as well, still in the negative as expected, down 2.3%. So this is going to keep the prospect of them doing something with rate cuts on the table. Over in Japan, we've had all these 3-4-way meetings between the parties. It's becoming clearer and clearer that the opposition parties to the LDP are trying to cobble something together. We've had the head of the Ishin party, Yoshimura, saying that hurdles are high for a coalition with the LDP. Co-leader Fujita says a three-way opposition talks are returning to the Secretary General level. There's a chance of reaching a three-party agreement. DPP leader Tamaki says, even if I won the PM job, governing would be hard. There's still some distance between our party and the CDP. Says our basic policies, there is a lot on our basic policies. There's a lot of overlap between us and the LDP. And if we can develop trust, we can work with the LDP. So he's not giving up potentially on a coalition still with the LDP. He says if a pact is agreed, party leaders will meet again on October the 20th. CDP party leader Noda said if the opposition works together, we have a chance to take power. Says the chances of a three-party agreement aren't zero. So they're all still scurrying around. It looks, as I say, like they're trying to do something without the LDP, so they get into power, and the LDP is then bumped to the sidelines. But it remains to be seen. One thing that is, or one party that is conspicuous with his absence is Komito. Heard no comments from those guys, and they really are the pivotal party. If they jump in either side, they could potentially swing the leadership in whatever direction they go. So they are a big linchpin in all this, and not saying too much in terms of all those talks today. Okay, where are we at?
We're at the stage where the opposition is trying to align some of their policies, but for the time being, it's still more an anti-Takaichi move than aligning their own policies in between them. There's big differences on geopolitics, on the way Bank of Japan should handle the stuff, but three parties in the opposition are not going to be enough to have a majority government, and that is potentially still going to be a problem to do anything, because imagine that LDP Takaichi is out, and Komeito does not align with those three, forming a four-party coalition. Komeito and LDP can vote against everything that the three-party can put forward in the diet. So that is one thing.
Can I just ask quickly: can Komeito and LDP together form a majority, or will they still be a minority?
No, they're still a minority government, but the thing is, being a minority government with missing, if I'm correct, about 8 or 9 or maybe just a little bit more votes to push anything through. That's always possible to do things because there are enough independents there who could be leaning with them. As where if you form a three-party government on the other side, they nearly go if they don't get Komeito, they will probably need most of the independents to vote for anything to get it through. And there is an issue because a lot of those independents are ex LDP or ex whatever, and they left for nearly personal reasons because of that Yokozuna shrine thing, and I mean, I can't psychologically vote or stay here because we have the wrong foreign policy approach, etc., etc. As where if they want to vote anything for stimulus, they will always find enough people in the independents to help them get over the line, and even in the other parties because as Tamaki said today as well, they have a lot of overlapping with the LDP as a party because of the fiscal approach of things, right? And there are differences in when it comes to the Bank of Japan or, as I said, foreign policy also stances. But to vote for anything stimulus related, that shouldn't be a problem if it's still LDP and Komeito. But of course, as you say, Komeito now having left, there may be an issue for Takaichi to actually get enough support for her to be the next prime minister. So. As we saw this morning, the big decision day for the opposition will probably be the 20th, with the vote for the new prime minister the day after in Diet. So I guess we're heading towards a bit of weekend risk again in Japan because they can decide whether or not to hold that big opposition meeting and push forward a candidate. And just a little word on the candidate. As you already said, Tamaki isn't feeling too hot to take up the prime minister hat. Noda was prime minister when the big quake hit in Japan back in 2011, and they handled it extremely poorly. I'm not sure, even being the biggest opposition party, that he would get the nod to become the next prime minister. And then you have an extra problem. Are you going to have a prime minister for fourth, fifth, sixth party in importance? Yeah, and that's always been the problem in opposition land in Japan, is getting their votes behind one person. We've seen that lady in Tokyo, remember, who tried to come up against Abe in the opposition, but she never even got to his knees in the number of votes, right? That's always and still seemingly remains the issue in the opposition in Japan.
Yeah, and that other thing we got yesterday as well, that there's even talk that potentially Takaichi could become president of the LDP and not PM, and someone else go in. So it's really all becoming a bit of a mess over there with all that.
They do have those. We can hardly call them second fiddlers because they have had really important roles like Aso and Suzuki and etc. That could still be the surprise. But Aso, how old is he already? He's well into the 80s, I think.
Yeah, that's one of their big problems as well, isn't it? It's all the same old people who've been there for donkey's years.
Absolutely,
So
right.
anyway, we're still at stalemate. That's where we're at. This 21st day, it was touted again for the DX session, but then there's another piece saying that that's off the table. I'm not sure if them getting an agreement on the 20th, they can call something so quickly in the DX for the next day. I mean, I don't know how it all works, but I would assume they need a bit of time to organise a session. But who knows?
Well, unless they decide upon a prime minister candidate on the 20th, then the vote on the 21st can take place.
Yeah, well, we'll see. They've got to get something done by the end of the month anyway, because they've got all that budget stuff to go through. So we're treading water there politically. We just have to keep an eye on all these meetings and whatnot. And as I say, keep your ear to the ground for any noises from Comito Party, because they've been quiet. Right, over to the RBNZ. It's having a little change around with its monetary policy meetings. They're going to keep holding 7 meetings a year, but they're going to close the gap between their meetings over the summer, because they say it's too large a gap between meetings, so they're going to tinker with that. Over at the RBA's Hunter says Q3 inflation is likely stronger and the labour market tighter, even while jobs growth is slowing. He says recent data has been slightly stronger than expected, and that Q3 inflation is going to exceed their forecasts. So that's likely to keep them sitting on their hands. BOE's Bailey says UK businesses say they are delaying investment decisions due to uncertainty, but no shit Sherlock. A lot of firms doing that, particularly ahead of the budget. BOE's Taylor, one of the big doves, says soft landing scenario is receding. He says the current view is a preponderance of downside risks, sees wage settlements close to or below 3% next year, and that wage-led inflation won't rekindle an upward spiral. He said too restrictive policy has braked too hard. Over in France, we may have some form of solution there, if you can call it a solution. PM Le Cornu did a big speech in Parliament yesterday. Basically, one of the big things, the choke points for them passing the budget is pension reform. He has proposed suspending that pension reform until the presidential elections, which are not until 2027, saying that the pension reform suspension will be paid for by belt tightening measures, i.e. a bit more austerity, which is something the opposition parties are against. So they're against pension reform and they're against austerity, so they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Long story short is the main players, opposition players or main party players, have held back from putting forward a no confidence vote. Some of the smaller parties still wanted one, but they didn't get the numbers for it. So it looks like there's some appeasement in French politics that helped give the euro a lift. We're not out the woods any which way, but things might be heading to some sort of resolution, but there's a long way to go yet. And looks like Macron might have avoided having to call for a snap election.
Yeah, well, it's the funny thing is now in France, it's not a case of are you voting for somebody, but it's a case of are you not voting against somebody. So it's not a real support that he gets, but he's just they probably the socialists and even the right wingers, they may not vote against or for the no confidence motion. Let's put it that way. So yes, it's tomorrow, I think, the vote, right? So it's going to be an important one. I also think for us traders, if you look at euro and euro crosses, it's going to be an important day tomorrow for this vote, because imagine that that he doesn't get the support or the confidence, then we're back into misery over there. Yeah, so I mean, there's a bit of positivity there. Let's put it that way, and that's supporting the euro right now. All still a bit fragile, but if he gets through tomorrow, it could give the euro maybe another psychological little lift, depending on what for euro dollar the dollar does, of course, and but on the euro crosses especially, it could be an interesting day tomorrow again.
Yeah, very much so. ECB's Guard says the economy has been relatively resilient to tariffs. ECB is generally in a good place, but would never say the ECB is done with rate cuts. ECB's McClough says the ECB is also in a good place and that the disinflationary process is over. Francis Villeroy says the next rate move more likely to be a rate cut than a hike. Another one repeating the line, the ECB is in a good place, but says that place is not fixed. Not much data out yesterday. I haven't even got the calendar set up again. There we go. We did have the NFIB Small Business Optimism Index, which we're taking a look at because we've got nothing else to look at. That came in softer at 98.8. That was the first decline in 3 months. 64% of business owners reported that supply chain disruptions were affecting their businesses to some degree. That was up 10 points from August. The net percent of owners reporting higher versus lower profits rose to its highest level since December 2021. So they're still making some good money. A net 14% of owners reported that inflation was their single most important problem. And good news, a net 16% plan to increase employment. So just a little bit of boots on the ground info there. Fed's Powell was out. He said we may be approaching the end of the balance sheet contraction in the coming months, i.e. the end of QT. Not really a surprise move, or it's not a surprise move or comment, because that's something the Fed had been looking at for quite some time. He said the data before the government shutdown suggested growth may be better than expected. Says the Fed has other data beyond government sources to use, but that the Fed will start to miss the data will become more challenging, or things will become more challenging if the shutdown lingers. Says October data could be delayed. Overall, he wasn't overly dovish. He was fairly bullish on the economy and things, but okay, nothing much for the market in that one.
Not really. Maybe the interesting thing is that he confirmed that the risks between jobs and inflation are right now converging, but he was relatively quick to add as well that if the tariff situation it could potentially see inflation stick around for longer and than originally thought. But it was also interesting that he was talking about that job situation, and especially the slowing down of the job market. Not only hiring, firing, everything has absolutely slowed down, and had a bit of difficulties to pinpoint a number which would be the break-even rate for the NFPs. We know that they all try to pin it at 50K or even a little bit below. But at some point, yeah, that was maybe the half dovish thing, but again, a very walking all sides or walking all ales even during that intervention of his yesterday. So we can't really call it declaration of intent on the one or the other side. He was very quick in walking both sides. The interesting thing is that, of course, they don't have all the data, but then he said he called the beige book coming out later today an important data set now, and that's coming out around 7 o'clock our time tonight.
Yeah, the good old beige book, that'll be back in focus again.
Yeah.
the only look at retail sales, we only look at the regional Fed regions to see what's going on there. So yeah, that'd be important once again. Right, over to the China stuff. US Trade Representative Greer says that China rare earths measure came out of nowhere, but thinks the US will be able to work through it with China. A bit of a negative headline or report out overnight suggested that this Chinese export controls on rare earths were already in place through September. So they may have just announced it, but they have already been tightening up on those export controls. China still walking a very tough line on all this. The US side seem to think that talks are still on. There's been no full-on confirmation from the Chinese side that that's going to happen. So the clock ticks down, and we'll have to wait and see. Fred was asking, what does it all mean? What's the macro playbook? We don't know until we get to these meetings. The US is obviously already looking to diversify its reliance on China and their rare earths, but we'll have to wait and see what happens with these tariffs and whether this fight gets worse, and what they decide to do. Trump's said he's going to look at stopping cooking oil imports from China. Work that one out. It's not exactly a big measure, one would think, but the tit for tat could continue and could keep going until we get to this meeting. So the impact means a further potential tightening of goods out of China into the US, and potentially vice versa. So we might be seeing some wobbly trade numbers once again. We had some of the earnings out, first Q3 earnings coming through from a lot of the banks, and all pretty much tickety-boo. We had JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Goldie's, Citigroup, all posting reasonably good numbers. So no horror stories coming out in Q3. That's going to keep stocks underpinned for a while until risk shits the bed again. But yeah, all that stuff coming in okay. Kate, anything else from you?
No, I think we've covered most of what could be shaking markets right now. Yeah, but no, nothing in the news.
Cool beans. Right, let's go crack on. Right, Ali, let's have a quick look at what you're up to. Dollar CAD. Okay, so you read my tweet, which my tweet was saying that this level here, 30.20, is the important level, and you bought it right in here at 56. So I don't know why you're trading around in between the prior high and where we've got significant support or potential support. So I don't know about that one. Your euro sterling. You got profit at 86.80. Again, that's just a bit above support that we've got down here, 86.90, but we have been down to the 80s, so that one might be a bit valid. We still can't get through this 86.20s level. So we've had another go today, and it's proven pretty solid. If we get that move above, it's probably going to have at least a run up towards these highs, and then we'll see what we do up there. So this one's still a bit of trying to work out what it wants to do. Dollar yen, that's had a move down to near decent support. 150.80s was a big level we were talking about a few months ago. It was a significant bottom, and then it became a significant area of resistance that led to all this move and everything down here. So we're back at that level. We got close at level. 90s was the low today, 89, 90. So we got close to that level, which that could be significant. It looks like this one, it's on its series of lower lows. We broke that prior low, new low, but we seem to be having this switcheroo again between what happens in Asia and what happens when Europe and everyone else comes to the table. But so far the bounces have been relatively weak in this one, but as I say, we have hit close to a significant support level, so keep an eye on that one for now. I had my eye off the ball yesterday. Aussie dollar hit a old level. You might remember this level when we were trading all around it back in the early part of this year, and before, when we couldn't get through, broke, couldn't hold it, broke, couldn't hold it, and then we finally made a decent break. Got a bit washed out, but again, this is one of those times where you've been away from a decent level for a while, you come back to it and you see it show up again. And it showed up on the nail. at that 64.14. We've had a decent bounce since, but we're still in this downtrend. As I mentioned the other day, would we make a new low? Yes, we would. And so that keeps the downtrend in play. So if we can't get back above this zone, we could be heading back down towards that one. Last one I'm going to look at, and then I'll pass it over to Mr. K. Dollar MEX back in the box. Another fake out. We matched this high that we got last Friday, and then it's been all the way back down again since. So we still cannot hold these moves outside of the 1850. Where we want to go for here, who knows? But we are back in that box once again, and as you can see there, we are finding resistance again. So this one, just when you think it might be going, it's not ready to go yet. We've seen plenty of those moves time and time before when it looks like it's going to bust an upside move, only to turn it all around again after. Kay, what are your thoughts on this one? Because I thought it might be going yesterday.
Well, it had the looks. I mean, I was saying as well in the room yesterday. I sat back at the desk after a number of days off. Yeah, I had 2 days on, but I mean, a number of days off, and it was looking like the dollar was really going to teach all the other currencies a lesson. And 24 hours later, we're here, and it's all been undone. Yeah, there's potentially enough uncertainty in between China and US, because we know that there's a lot of Chinese stuff getting channeled through Mexico, not for the mix to strengthen too much, but that rejection of there, and for no apparent technical reason, it just seems like, oh, all right, the dollar isn't holding, so we are just going to sell it again. Yeah, it's just keeping, all in all, if you look at the longer term move, it's keeping the mix still amongst the currencies that could actually continue to do pretty well overall. But we might have those kind of blips. We have seen it in quite a few currencies actually. Those pretty fast moves one side or the other when the market is forced into one direction or the other, and mix maybe one of those. I still think overall Mexico is going to get out of it on the other side, still doing pretty well, because it's still going to be a provider of a lot of stuff to the US, regardless what happens anywhere else. And so I think the wider moves, you were talking yesterday about 19. I'm actually rather inclined to sell a 19 blip than buying a dip still in that thing. But of course, we have to get to 19 first. We may never get there, or at least not in the foreseeable future. But yeah, Mex is still one of the currencies. I'm not keen to sell the Mexican peso right now for longer than a couple of sessions, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's this 1850 is becoming a little bit messy. So yeah, I mean, I might, depending on the news, of course, I might still be interested in trying to scout the bottom of the range. But yeah, I think I'm in the same camp as you. If we're getting up to 1880s, 19s, and there's no real news change, then yeah, I might think I'll have a little go, add into my shorts on that move. I mean, are we just waiting on a USMCA solution, and will that be the kicker to take it lower?
No, I think China is more is perhaps because USMCA could last for months more, right? But I think we'll know more by the end of the month, the APEC, whether they meet or not, Xi or Trump, how that's going to work. And I think it's going to come earlier, and it's going to affect risk. Risk is affecting emerging markets usually. We've seen also, and now it's coming back down, dollar rand ramping up 30 or 40 big figures because of the risk-off move. And I think this US-China thing, and that's coming back to what was it Fred was asking about this stuff earlier. I think China-US has the potential to drive risk harder and faster than USMCA could do in the immediate. I think USMCA now has to wait until Trump knows what's going to happen, or the Trump administration knows what's going to happen between them and China. And I think that there could be your next bigger move.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, mate. Right. I'm going to pass it over to you.
Yeah. Just going to look at a few. The interesting one here is euro dollar. Because not only do we have this kind of bit better support, or less people against Le Cornu, and there's been a bit of chatter around the double bottom here, which is a double low, that's for sure, and it has been traded as well. And if you go onto a bit of a longer term frame, if you look at this, we are still in this range. Apart from those two spikes that I've already mentioned, we're still in this kind of 3-4 big figure range, and having issues to try and come out. But in the short term, yes, we have this double bottom. Yes, it can be triggered, but I still would like to see what happens around this 116.50, 55-ish. Where this trend line comes in from the high that we printed in mid-September over early October then, and that comes in at around 116.55. That would be a nice confirmation if the euro dollar moves above it. But for as long as it doesn't, because we also see those little spike lows, and not spike lows, well, these were spike lows, and then this little attempt around 116.5. So it's all going to happen in this 116, call it 50, 60 zone. That would be a confirmation, I think, for a move a bit higher in the euro dollar. For as long as that doesn't happen, I still can see that we are ranging, maybe ranging a little bit. I did buy it yesterday, just around here, actually, on the back of that French support. Already took some off, but I'm not going to push anything in size of position before we really confirm through this, and then we could go for a quick run back into the 117s perhaps. Cable is doing relatively the same thing. Yesterday was looking pretty bad when I sat down, really, and but it managed to crawl it all back up and get back to that 133.60, 65 zone, which really is shaping up as being a quite a nice decision area. Okay, here as well, I don't like to be stuck to just one level. So here as well, I'm still using that 133.90 potentially as a confirmation if it would continue to go higher. But if it breaks above the 65.90, skies will open up a little bit again. But before it happens, same thing as on the euro dollar, it still has to happen. Okay, and so it could be that we have seen a little bit of an intermediate top here, and we may be stabilizing. We are not too far away from that 133.30 is a bit close for comfort, maybe around 133, and then do a bit of a yo-yo unless the dollar picks a direction. Okay, we've been talking at the start of the show. Powell didn't give us enough, but apparently he gave enough to the market to keep doubting about the viability of dollar rallies. So we have to keep this option, let's say, open for it to really maybe make a move higher. But again, in between both euro and sterling, even though euro sterling is capped around 87.20 again, I still think that sooner or later this is going to crawl back up. But so maybe euro dollar will be your better one if you want to be short dollars, but I still think to be careful on both of them. Yeah, that Aussie yesterday here, it did come a little bit lower than that support, but I just wanted to show this, and I know Ryan already showed it. Okay, this is a bit of a hinge around 2025 here in the Aussie. But the thing is interesting for the Aussie as well is that over the past, let's say, since end of last week, start of this week, we're back on where Aussie was kind of living its own life for a while. We're back on the risk kind of train, right? We saw the stocks came down. We saw the problems between China and the US, and the commodities coming back down, and Aussie really caught up very, very quickly. So we may be in a period, I would say, of a bit more volatility in the Aussie, just because some of the correlations that we lacked for a while. So this was a dollar move, then the Aussie move, but now there's more correlations coming back into the Aussie seemingly. So it could be a bit of a, we could be in for a bit more volatility on the Aussie dollar, and we will have to look at what's happening on the equity markets. We will have to look at what's happening on the commodities. Maybe not so much gold, even though Australia is also a gold producer. Maybe that's what held it up for a while here as well. But the risk, it's getting a little bit more sensitive to risk again. So I think Aussie may be a little more volatile as we start to see here. Okay, but I'm with Ryan actually. I think we both of us took our eye off the ball here a little bit, and yeah, I was actually waiting to see if we could get down to lower 64s, but yeah, back above 64 and a half, it didn't really look back, and we are already back here. 1% is a decent move on the stuff like Aussie, right? So we are already a percent higher, and it does look like being relatively well underpinned again right now. So keep an eye on all those risk factors as well. Gold and silver, what to say? This thing is moving like hell, but the situation in gold has not changed, okay? Every decent setback is followed by the next leg higher. And we still saw it at the end of last week, and we're moving higher, and we saw it even yesterday. Yesterday was looking like finally some decent correction, or the bids are leaving the ship were happening. But as soon as actually the States came in, did another little one close to 4,100, but then the next leg higher, it is still the perfect hedge against everything that can go wrong. And what can go wrong now? Well, China and the US for one. So we still, and we are seeing again, it is going to remain volatile as well. That is also what I think. It's going to remain very volatile. We are going to see more of this. If you want to trade that channel or whatever, feel free. I, for now, am going to just watch it. But the thing is that every correction that we have seen here, and we can see this here as well in the more medium term, has held before we were starting to be in danger of the overall trend getting put to the test. Okay, so buyers have stepped in before every real danger zone. Okay, and we are still seeing it. So in the short term, you could see maybe 41.60, but I rather would look at this one around 41.10, and then yesterday's was that yesterday? Yeah, yesterday's 40.90, or the day before 40.90. That is probably going to be the first zone. If it goes below that, we need to start thinking about, okay, this is now with potential seeing more retracement, and then you still have this prior high around 40.60 as well. But until then, and I know that people like to try and find the tops, but still be very, very careful until this happens. It is just guessing for a top, right? Yes, one day it'll be the top and it will drop, but people thought it here, people thought it here, people thought about it here, because there we had a decent setback. People thought about it yesterday, and will be tempted to sell the rally again today because they don't know better. But look at it overall. The overall trend has not yet been put in danger. We cannot talk about a deeper correction before this happens. And in silver, we are seeing pretty much the same thing, and even more violent. If you look at the moves in percentage wise, it's really, really violent. So if you want to hang on to a technical kind of look, we've tested the top end of this little channel that we have been building on since mid-September, around 53. So 53, 53.10. If that goes, then you look at this spike high, but really, if it goes, then we're talking about 55. But again here, every move, every correction has stopped before the trend becomes in real danger. Okay, now we have to look at it because it's so violent and so volatile. And yesterday I thought at one stage that okay, this could start to look a bit dangerous, but we had the same thing as in gold. It rallied sharply again. But again here, you could look at several levels here. Maybe 51 and a quarter. Maybe this triple spike low here, just under 50 and a half, which is not too far actually from where the trend line comes in. But to put this trend, even the shorter trend, not even to talk about the longer term, but to put this in danger, we are going to have to get back below 50 and a quarter, 49 three quarters. Before that happens, I mean, I don't think we can, if with any chance of higher probability, say that we are going to have seen a top in place and we're in for a deeper correction. So be careful when people counter trade, because a lot, and I've seen it so much since I changed from banking to the private sector to the retail sector. People see a big move, they have to counter trade it. Ask yourself why this move is happening. There's a lot of supply going on, and as I said already, I mean, unfortunately, when there's wars going on, silver is a conductor. Silver is used in whatever, even for drones. And I'm just going to repeat this here, right? And there is a big supply issue for now in silver. So if you counter trade it, you're just betting a chip on the 00 in the casino, saying that, oh, okay, the demand is going to dry up and we are going to see a big correction. For now, those who are long are still in a much safer position as those who try to counter trade this for now. Yes, it will happen, same as in gold. It will. And yesterday we have seen some of the banks now starting to come out saying like, oh, this is going too fast. Watch out for very sharp corrections if the bid dries up. Yes, I've been saying that too, but look at what's happening. It's not yet happening. All right. So be careful on both of them. And I think
We've just had a bit of a headline out from the issuing party, say that if they can agree policies, they'll vote for Takaichi. That's given yen pairs a little lift.
Okay, so we're back to square. The opposition can't get their act together.
Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah, okay. All right. And I just seen the line, and so he does see Monday as the limit for reaching an agreement, and I guess he means opposition parties, right?
Yeah. Or anyone, I think, whatever deal they want to do.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, I'm not saying it will happen, but if there's enough kind of the opposition parties coming back to somewhere, Takaichi, I'm not ruling out Komeito to get back into ship either, you know.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'm done sharing for today, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. We'll call it a day for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Flow Show. As always, your support is most welcome. And have a great day, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Hey traders, this is Blake Morrow with ForexAnalytix. Thanks for stopping by our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like these videos, share them, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the content that we provide here for free. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next video.